does it mean to like create culture versus like create the space, so to speak? Like, how do you help me understand that kind of piece there?
Yeah. You can't just force it on anyone. I mean, everybody is completely different. And so for you to it's almost like you're creating a culture on a one-to-one basis before you create it for the team, because you need to understand everything about your team member, why they are motivated in the way that they are, how they like to be recognized. And that's actually how you're building it, because you're creating the dynamic one-to-one to truly know about this one individual, because you don't lead as a team. You don't just like lead everybody exactly the same, just as you wouldn't manage your clients exactly the same, because everybody is different. So flexing and really truly understanding the needs per individual on your team builds up. And then when you're with the team, everyone to be comfortable to share and learn and get to know each other. And then that's how it gets more and more, because you're kind of in it together. Everyone is wanting to help each other out. Like I said earlier, everyone has their own individual quota, but when we have big wins together, it's like the whole team won. Um, so that's where the 6 pillars came in for me of trying to figure out, well, how do I help give examples on the best way to do this for my leaders?
I love that. And I want to get to the 6 pillars in a minute. The thing maybe that I think has changed quite a bit, and maybe changed a bunch and now it's changed a little bit less, is when you say the word together, together might mean on a Zoom, together might mean in an office, together might mean, one for 2 days, one for 3 days. How has remote or hybrid work kind of changed how you create culture?
Yeah, a lot. And I feel like I'm still learning quite a bit, even though we're 3 years in. I can always tell because my daughter was born May of 2020, so I can always like backtrack into when we got into this. I mean, that's a whole other story of dealing with all of the craziness. But for when I think about the beginning of the pandemic, we were doing check-ins like twice a day, like trying to do all these like virtual happy hours, virtual whatever it was, and it worked for a time, and then it just didn't work. And I think going back to what and that personal connection, and I would say having one-to-one conversations that aren't via Zoom has been helpful. I do a lot of walk and talks. Or just, hey, let's go on a walk together and let's talk just on our phone. Like,
Mm.
you don't need to always be on camera, because I feel like sometimes that's the opposite as we're on camera. I feel like sometimes that does the opposite, because you feel very forced into that. Whereas like when you were in the office, you didn't have a camera on you the whole time during every meeting. You were sitting around the table and you weren't getting 100% attention. Um, so that's one thing. And of course, whatever you can do on site, if possible, if it works. I mean, I know my teams we're all over. We do have a good amount in our Chicago headquarters, and we go into the office every once in a while. But I'll just say it again, it goes back to the human connection, and whatever you can do to draw, to learn more and draw people in to say like, hey, I get it. If you work best where you need to go do a workout class in the middle of the day, please do it. Like, this is your time. I want you to feel very free of like what the asks are. I need you on this time at this moment, but otherwise I want you to have the autonomy to go and do your own thing, because remote work is no longer like 9 to 5. It bleeds, and it does. I don't want it to bleed, but sometimes it does, where, you sign on early because you did get that email and the contract. You're like, oh, now I'm at my desk, I'm working. So I welcome any tons of other ideas, because this has been a topic of conversation I mean, really for the last 3 years, on how do we continue that, because it is really challenging.
Hmm. And you bring up an interesting point, where when you can work all the time, right? Like, if it's not 9 to 5, then what is it? And you said something really interesting in the pre-interview that I'd love to share. Talk to me about how you balance figuring out what you will and will not flex on from a calendar perspective.
Yeah. I think it goes back with like you being a leader and being vulnerable and sharing first, and sharing, your motivations. And for me, I have 2 young kids, and I want to be able to take my daughter to school in the morning. And that is blocked off on my calendar. And, my team knows that if And they also know if for some reason I have to go pick her up or whatever, I do need to move a meeting. And I say the same to them. I understand that not everybody has the same situation, but if there is something that is your own, like non-negotiable, let's talk about it and let's hear. And I want it to be available and open for us to discuss, because you can't, like, I don't want people working all of the time, and I want them to be able to have their balance, whatever the balance looks like. I'm not going to put ratios on it, but it's important to just have that open conversation.